This is a coordinated entry training for the Eastern Pennsylvania Continuum of Care. This is a triage assessment refresher training. And I'm just going to walk through the triage assessment workflow because there have been a few changes in the past several months and one change in the past week. The triage assessment questions are uh, really not required by HMIS, but or by HUD, but in the HMIS data standards, but we use them to better understand the local housing and service needs of our community and make more appropriate referrals to housing and services and provide a little bit more information to our housing case managers to help them do enrollment, engagement, and case management. So the triage assessment, like all of our pages in PAHMIS, the red star means a required question. The first few questions are fairly straightforward. Phone, we don't do virtual intake. That's just a baseline selection. So we're either choosing phone or in person as part of the intake. The household type, and then we get to the first question that is really customized for us, and just want to explain that our governing board is interested in monitoring the percentage of households experiencing homelessness that are also receiving Medicaid benefits. It's an indicator of the economic status and also the health status of our members, and there are some opportunities with Medicaid enrolled households to access certain benefits from their Medicaid provider. Uh, and so we were doing two things by asking this question. One is we're calculating what percentage of everyone experiencing homelessness in our CoC region is a Medicaid recipient. And also, at some point, we may be able to use that information to connect specific households with Medicaid benefits to additional benefits through their provider. So, that question, do you or another household member currently receive Medicaid benefits from the state of Pennsylvania? That's why that is one of our triage assessment questions. And if prompted, there's just a little more detail around what Medicaid is and what it covers. The next question that we added last year at the request of our governing board is anyone in your household currently employed? The value of that question for the governing board is to really be have some data to work against a kind of a common assumption or more of a mainstream myth that everyone experiencing homelessness in our region is unemployed and has no income. And so, while it's a very simple question, is anyone in your household currently employed? And we could go into additional detail on sources of income or amount of income to keep this a streamlined process and not be too intrusive. We're just asking, is anyone in your household currently employed? Our data shows that there are more households that are employed and experiencing homelessness than one might think. I think we know the reality, but that data point helps our governing board and our CoC membership just educate, rate, and raise awareness in the broader community that people experiencing homelessness have a range of backgrounds, including employment status. The current living situation is really just it's tied to earlier parts of the intake, so that's why it appears here. While verified by project is not red starred, I recommend always selecting this. I'm aware that at times if you don't select this verified by project Cat 1.4, it actually will not let you move forward. So while that's not a red star required question, I treat it as such and would recommend you do the same. Current living situation is the whatever has already been recorded previously in the beginning of the enrollment should be appear here and should be identical. The housing problem solving section we also added last year when we unveiled our housing problem solving grant program for access sites. So again, while we have select access sites that were required to answer this question during the period of the grant, And we do believe that grant will be coming back in the future, and there'll be another opportunity for all access sites to apply for some funding. We encourage all of you, if you're doing any sort of housing problem solving conversation or diversion conversation while you're doing the CE enrollment, to try to help find a creative solution for a household that will avoid the necessity of them spending another night in an unsheltered location, or avoid the need to refer and enroll them into emergency shelter. We would ask that you document that by answering this question, yes or no. And if you answer yes, creating a dedicated CE intake note with our custom subject line housing problem solving, to take some detailed notes on whether that attempt was successful or not, whether or not your organization used any of its own flexible financial assistance or any grant funding to help attempt that diversion or housing problem solving attempt. And so at the moment, while that grant program is on pause, we would still encourage you to record the answer to this question so that we know how often housing problem solving is part of CE enrollment. We appreciate that sometimes there is not the time to do housing problem solving, and without flexible financial assistance, it might be impossible to help make that creative solution happen. But we would still ask that you document those attempts. Under servicing and preferred county, this is where we reconfirm the household's current county of residence. This information most likely is in the basic, should have been recorded in the basic client profile, but we ask that you redocument it here. And then crucially, county where assistance is preferred is a question about whether the head of household and the household are willing to relocate to other counties in our CoC network where there may be housing and services available that are not available in their own current county of residence. And also, I do want to go back and clarify the question, the first question in this section: in what county do you currently or most recently reside? Uh, is Ideally, we want the most recent county of residence that's within the CoC, because that provides us more information in the back end of the system in terms of our reporting and our understanding of uh, where people are currently experiencing their housing crisis or homelessness within our CoC region. Of course, it is possible that, and we often do intake for people that are not in one of our 33 counties of residence. So within Pennsylvania, you might be selecting Dauphin County, which is not part of our CoC, but that the household wants to relocate or move back into our CoC region, where there may be their own social networks, resource networks, and or we have housing opportunities for them. So in all cases, ideally, we would collect the current county of residence or most recent county of residence within our region. And if it's not in our region, it possibly not even in our state, then we still have the option of documenting that by using these drop-down menus. Going back to county where assistance is preferred, it's possible that households will say, I'm willing to go anywhere where there is a housing opportunity. Technically, you could just check the double check mark and check them all, or use that to remove a few of them. But the other option is really just to check the counties that they are willing to relocate to. So nothing there has changed. But the reason that we ask this is, again, so that particularly our regional managers can help make referrals and help you are able to make referrals to as many options as reasonably possible. The next thing we did is what's brand new as of this week. Most of you will probably recall that there was a question in this first section of the triage that just said MH diagnosis, yes, no. And the purpose of that question was to ask whether the head of household had a mental health diagnosis. because we, at the time, for most of the years that our core entry system has been in operation, we have had several programs of which having a mental health diagnosis was a criteria, requirement for enrollment. And and that was a required question, MH diagnosis. We are now at the point where we only have two housing programs that are HMIS participating, one in Cumberland County, one in Monroe County, where a mental health diagnosis is required, and specifically a diagnosis from a doctor or health professional. So that question has been moved into this section. We have spelled out the entire question, how we would like it to be asked. Do you have a mental health diagnosis from a doctor or a health professional? And only if in the preferred county list, if Cumberland or Monroe County was selected, that's the only situation in which you need to ask this question. So it's now optional. That means that if they prefer to live in Cumberland or Monroe potentially, then you would ask the question. You would record the answer, yes, no, or client prefers not to answer. Otherwise, you can completely skip this question and leave it at select. If you feel the need to answer every question, it would be preferable to record client prefers not to answer rather than data not collected, although it's really fine just to leave it as is and skip over it if they are not interested in residing in Cumberland or Monroe counties. The bedrooms needed question is optional here. It's required in our DV anonymous workflow. But it is possible that you can ask how many bedrooms ideally would a household need. And that is helpful information for our housing case managers. But it is not, you're not required to ask those questions for a mainstream enrollment or a non-DV anonymous enrollment. It can be helpful for people that are fleeing DV that have answered yes in the domestic violence assessment screen right before this. That's a situation where it's a good idea to ask about how many bedrooms are needed. But again, it's never required to ask that question. It's completely optional and situational. When you've completed that workflow, that is the triage assessment. Of course, I skipped a question. Okay. And that completing the triage assessment will take you then to the housing assessment tool.